Moving the needle.
What is up, everyone?
Yeah.
We are back on Movement Radio with another Moving the Needle interview. And sit tight, hold back, because we are here with Dave Richards from MK837 Records, formerly Tasty Fresh, formerly Cornerstone After Hours Festival Memories. Like, so many good things that we just cannot wait to unpack. But it's Dave Richards, artist and DJ and all the rest.
Yeah.
And we're just so happy to have you, bro.
How you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. We are super, super stoked to have you. So, Moving the Needle segment, Dave Richards. Let's go.
All right. Well, let's get right into it real quick. A few questions here. Just tell us, what was life like growing up? And how did you, maybe, your backstory a little bit, and how did you get into this thing called electronic dance music?
So I'm like the oddball. I grew up in like the kind of the conservative home on classical music, and always in church, always kind of conservative. But back in the 80s, I started hearing some electronic music that was coming out. This Future Bach, I think, was like the first thing my dad brought home. CD with like electronic music from soundtrack, stuff like that. So that's electronic sound kind of got into it. I can't remember the guy's name, but there was an album called Deep Breakfast, and that was like another huge kind of early 80s thing that was going. Vangelis was another one.
Yeah.
So we're talking Blade Runner and Chariots of Fire.
Yes. So
yeah.
good.
So those like just lock things in. Then there was the Depeche Mode stage, and then DNC Music Factory. Don't make you sweat.
Yeah, Clavellis and Cole.
I'm like locked in. Every time you hear that, it's like, that's my jam.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, I've like
So good.
sampled it at least once, But so anyway, so I got that, and I was alto sax player in band growing up, and had to give up music. Had to give it up to pursue art, because I wanted to end up doing a career in art and doing graphic design. And so I gave that up, and I only picked up the sax again on occasion until I got married. And then I started listening to, well, actually, in '92, I started listening to some electronic music, first, really techno and stuff like that. So the first one I got hold of was Jared Ellis.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was on. Remember where I was? I was on a ski trip. I think it was a ski trip anyway, with the youth group, and somebody had the tape and put it in to the tape deck for the bus, and the driver kept complaining, "Get that industrial music off!" And I'm like,
Industrial music, yeah.
"Yeah." I was like, "No, I didn't know at the time, but no, that was the next album. That wasn't industrial, but
Yeah, totally.
that's just straight techno there." So we did. From there, it was the same thing everybody else was at the time. So it was Dance House Children and Scott Blackwell and Zero. And
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
got
Zero.
there. And then what else do we have that time? I mean, it just rolled on. Echoing Green, Dance House Children, of course. Gotta have them.
Yeah.
The Jesus album they did was still to this day one of my faves from back then. But it just developed or just kept rolling on until I got married, and I had a little extra money, and all of a sudden I got curious about how this music is actually made, and that's when I went in and took some time and got free loops, got into some mentoring from Jamie Wright, who was running Tasty Fresh, and that led me to actually taking over Tasty Fresh. And then Will Foster mentored me for a little while, from Shelter Shed and Massive Vivid, Theophobia. Now he's with the Echo Brain. So all that was kind of going on, and I started releasing my own music and just burning my own fees and putting that out, and posting stuff on mp3.com. And that just kind of became a rhythm to understand how it was. And then now I'm like, which I could go into that history now if you want, or we can move on. But I mean, it just rolls on. It's been nonstop pretty much.
You are an absolute wealth of history and information, and in the greatest sense of the word. Like when we're looking for backspin music, rhythm saints. I mean, you know the journey, and it's funny because we have a similar journey with the inspirations and how we kind of came up and got into this thing. So it's super, man, it's inspiring. I'll never forget too. This is your interview, not mine, but Jarvidelics, man. My friend had this CD, and I ended up listening to it. I ended up having it on tape, and I was out of breath, dude, by the time I got to the exit. And I had the occasion a few years ago to tell Jerome, one of the guys involved in the in Jarvidelics, to tell him like what a huge like forefather he was. I'm sure he knows it, and everybody tells him things, but man, like what a huge inspiration. And then everything else you said, that's so cool. But piggybacking on what you just said, like you were a Christian kid raised in the church, going to youth camp, you were exposed to some of this stuff. With regards to faith, was it just something that kind of clicked right away, or was it something that you there was a certain time in your life where you're like, yes, I'm gonna actually follow, because you're raised in it, but when did you actually make the decision to sort of follow Jesus? Or was it a progression, or how did that work in your life?
So like everything else, it's a long story, right?
Yes, that's okay.
So I mean, the hard dark part of this is I had a sister. She died when I was 5 months old. She was an older sister, and from that standpoint, it's not that I hated God or anything, but there was something up with that relationship, and there was some pride that came up too with all this. But I basically did not become saved until I was 16, 17. And it was when we moved from Greensboro, North Carolina to Atlanta, Georgia. Well, actually, I was in Greensboro. I just never wanted to go forward down the aisle at some point.
Right.
The actual turning point was once again one of these, white knuckle Sunday services where you're hanging on the back of the pew, and right after somebody's preached about the end times, you start getting a little paranoid, and you show up at school the next day, and somebody tells you there's a rumor of the world about to end. The second comeing's about to happen. You're not smart enough to know that the Bible says, nobody knows the time or day, right?
Right.
So, in the middle of an art class, by myself, I privately, became a Christian at that point. And I did not, so I guess in a way I led myself. But no, I mean, it was one of those things where it's like, it's time, you got to do it now. And I haven't regretted it. I didn't walk the aisle and get baptized when we moved down here because there was a pride issue in that I didn't want to. I thought everybody else figured I was already saved.
Yes.
And I didn't want to go through that kind of public embarrassment because it's not, outside of the fact that I do joke around a lot, I'm actually kind of an introvert. So anyway, long story short, when we got settled into the church here, that's when everything's changed. I started being more open about my faith and things like that. I've worked in a liberal university up until 2014. So I've had kind of this really liberal exposure, anti-Christian exposure going through that entire time period where I've been able to kind of refine my arguments and beliefs about this. So that's been very useful. It's also kind of irritated other people because I also got the art degree I was trying to get. And so when you put yourself as somebody who thinks to counter to what everybody else does around you, and you've got a degree that essentially is criticism. It's not necessarily you doing all the art. You do the art, but you spend 3 hours a day posting your artwork and criticizing it.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So when you saw me all those years debating on Tasty Fresh, that's kind of a, coming together of those two skills, which turns a lot of people off.
Hey man, well, one of the things you touched on, and I think it's going to bring hope to a ton of people, is if you are one of those, like Dave was just mentioning, who were raised in a Christian home and you think everybody around you is saved, or you think everyone around you already thinks you're saved, but you yourself aren't, there's hope. You can get past that. You can make that decision to accept Christ and to live it out today. Don't go on like delaying the process because of what people will think. Dude, I think you just unlocked what a bunch of kids are going through just from that personal testimony. That's so incredible.
Yeah.
Some of those other things you touched on as well, like the skill sets that you had to learn because of the environment you were in. I view those things as, God-given strengths as well. It can be looked at however people want to look at it, and it can go both ways, but I see it as a strength. So, dude, thank you so much for sharing that. That's so good.
Yeah, let me just add one thing. It's like, I firmly believe that you can be saved but not baptized. I don't see that in the scripture that you have to be one or the other. But you gotta, at some point, come out of your shell. You gotta come out and live for God. You gotta confess,
Yes.
If you're not willing to admit Him publicly, then why should He admit you into heaven? It's that type of deal.
Yeah.
But don't be afraid. Don't be ashamed. Go do what you need to do. But remember, it's not the water that's saving you.
Right. Belief in your heart. It's believing
Right.
Christ in your heart that's actually the one thing that's saving us. It's His grace and not the act of baptism. That's good, dude. Thank you. That's so good. Well, you touched on it already, and I think Tim's gonna take the next question. But what of all those people would you say was your greatest inspiration musically? You already kind of touched on it, so we can kind of don't have to go there necessarily. But was there one or two that were just like the top tier inspiration musically?
That's a really good question, because it boils down to this probably not just one. It's just an amalgamation of things. As far as just raw creativity, it's obviously Gyro and Jerome Cornell. From their ability to be so diverse genre-wise with everything they've did together, to also be as intellectually sound and deep as they were with their lyrics.
Yeah.
That was just another really good thing, especially on Fathom.
Godspeed. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, Godspeed, Ex Nihilo, a lot of that stuff just go in there. It's just so deep. And some of it's actually, I think, Bright Wings. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on this. But Bright Wings, or John Chirpin. But Bright Wings, I think, was actually like a Keats poem. But I'm not sure.
Wow.
There was definitely some poetry that was inspirational on the album, if I remember correctly. But who knows? So yeah, just from the diversity and things like that, they taught me you need to always progress musically and be, take chances and do something different every time. The non-electronic at all, take a lot of inspiration from the 77s and what Mike Rowe has done. Mike Knott is still, with LSU, is still a huge influence on the kind of my attitude right now. The older I get, the more punk rock I feel.
So good.
Which is kind of odd. I don't think I should be feeling that way, but I do. Moby, you can't forget Moby and his contributions and everything else. Just, I don't know. I could go on and pick people individually. As far as people have actually put their hands on me and mentored me, Jamie Wright probably did the most of that.
That's awesome, man. So good.
Cool, man. Well, let's talk about, obviously you release tracks as Dave Richards and kind of deep techie stuff. That's how I'll generalize it. I think you might throw in a little tribal stuff from time to time, yeah? But
yeah.
But your music is on your label along with a ton of other artists. You're continually putting stuff out, but that label is MK837.
Yes.
Also referred to as Mark 837 from time to time, depending on who you are and how you read or translate. But it does reference the verse Mark 837, what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? Which is a great verse and obviously a great thing to be thinking about in terms of someone's life and their walk with the Lord. But tell us about the label. Tell us, what's happening. How things are going. Yeah.
So the label, we actually started. It was started with Kevin Neely or Kevin O'Neill and Chris Ritchie or D Flash back in September 2009 is when we started seriously talking about it. Our first release was in January of 2010, and through the years, I'm the only one left. as far as writing it. Long story, we're not going to go into that right now. But we started with the purpose of not being a specifically Christian label, but to give new artists a foot in the door and to try to help get them up to the next tier label. So we didn't want to necessarily keep them in our family. We wanted to help promote them up. That's also causes a problem that we can't grow as a label.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not really a bad thing. It's just that's kind of where it's at. So we're always probably the most underground of underground labels in some regards. Last year, I started making some serious changes on how the label's marketed. I'm trying to even revolutionize what we've done. Yeah, I mean, there's a whiteboard over here with just a ton of stuff I need to work on. But last year was our best year ever as far as sales go. We're still in the hole, but I'm running across more and more people who know us, who are telling us that they like the music, are happy with it. Just really, it's been a wild ride.
That's awesome, bro.
That's awesome. And where's the best place to find out about the label?
So the best place to find out about it is to head over to mk837.com or facebook.com/mk837. We're most active actually on Facebook, so hit us up there. And we're also on Proton Radio. We got a monthly radio show the first Wednesday of every month at 5 p.m. Eastern. We've got the archives up. Get that up on SoundCloud/MK837. So
that's awesome, man. I didn't know you had that show up. That's so good, dude. I'm so happy you mentioned that. Great, cool.
Yep.
And then how about you? Is that the best place for people to get a hold of you? Is that like your...
Ironically, yes, because I've tried to like maintain my own stuff, and with everything else going on with the label, I apparently handle only one thing, and it's the label right now.
That's awesome. So at mk837.com as well. So mk837.com is the website, and then at mk837 on socials. Facebook /mk837.
It gets kind of complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make it hard, even though it's easy. Dude, well, that's so good, man. Well, holy cow! Like, I'm so excited to hear your story, the backstory, the history. And I just feel like there's so much that people can learn from you. So not only are you delivering an incredible label with great content, but you also are someone that people can go to hear about the journey about dance music, Christians and dance music. And that's exciting to me. I know that you've been a friend and a resource for me personally. So I want to encourage people just to maybe reach out to you on that front too. And I've got a lot more questions, but I don't know if we're going to go into the next section of the extended version for that as well. Or are we going to?
Before we go there, maybe just real quick, touch on Tasty Fresh. And we'll go in the extended version. Maybe we'll dive into it more. But for those of you that don't know, Tasty Fresh was like this before social media. Really, it was online forums. It's where I know John and I used to connect with other DJs around the world that actually did this thing called dance music that we didn't even know like other people were doing it, and it was just this place where you could get feedback on music, you could talk about things going on, you can talk about the infamous question of can you play non-Christian music in your DJ sets, and ongoing debates about that. But yeah, just real quick, just tell us how you got involved in that. And I hear it's popping up again, possibly. So, real quick.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Sort of. So here's the deal. Tasty Fresh started, I think it was launched December 1996. Jamie Wright and I think it was Andy Payne actually started it. And originally it was just a database for vinyl that was secular, because there wasn't any Christian vinyl at the time, that was clean and could be used for DJing, and a few articles, interviews, and things like that. So it was more of a blog in the early days of that. Jamie eventually couldn't continue on with that just because he was busy with life and everything else. And he passed it on to me because he was mentoring me on music. So, and I happened to be in web design development too at the time, so I took it over. and we before he left, he just set up some message boards for it. And so I kind of kept those going, and they became I don't know, it was like a brawl all the time. It was
a world unto itself. It became its own world and community.
I wonder if I was actually banned more than any other member there, except for maybe Nate Carlisle over at God's DJs, but that's a totally different story. But eventually, social media came up, and just the traffic on the site went down because everybody was moving over to Facebook.
Sure.
And a few other, and I didn't have time to keep up with it. I was trying to run the record label, and so I ended up making the decision to shut it down. Cornerstone had died by then, so there wasn't, we weren't running a stage anymore. There really just wasn't anything to invest in at the time, and that was also kind of at the peak of the whole festival thing, when the music had kind of shifted from what I'm more into, which is that more old school, deeper sound, to this festival sound. But and dubstep was taken over. I don't relate to it as well. I just don't.
Right.
So, given all the changes that were going on, it just made sense to close it at the time. But we kept the Facebook group open the entire time. So, if you go to facebook.com/tastyfresh, that's the page that we got for the site. And I think there's a link on there to get into the group.
Okay.
But what you're talking about, Tim, is I actually did set up some new boards. The link is in the Facebook group.
Yes.
So you can go kind of relive a lot of what we used to do, but we don't have a lot of traffic over it. So it's like a few of the old guys are over there and they've signed up, and maybe once a week somebody posts something in there. So it's not very active. I wish it was more active, but
well, maybe something will happen there again. At the Tasty Fresh Facebook page, there's a link there. Check out maybe the new forums. But I just wanted to mention here that Dave Richards is one of the OGs from the Tasty Fresh boards. We'll talk more into it in the extended version of this interview. But again, at MK837 on the socials, MK837.com. Dave Richards here with us on the Moving the Needle radio interview. We're going to jump over to our extended version. Go to our YouTube channel at Transform EDM. Watch the full version of this interview. Thanks so much, Dave.
Thank you.
So good.
All right.
Okay. Extended version. Still recording. Bro, I have to say, because we kind of move fast past Tasty Fresh. Tasty Fresh, despite the brawls, and some of that was refining. Oh yeah. Outside of that, was such an incredible resource. I don't think it can be appreciated or overstated because of what it was at the time. There was no social media, but yet it was creating a community connection. You could see names, you could reply, you were having conversations.
Yeah.
You were in maybe the UK or California, but you're talking to somebody in Atlanta. It was about DJing, all the various conversations there. It was about producing, of course, Mac or PC, the constant, all that stuff kept coming. You provided eventually links to websites that we never knew about, like christianvinyl.co.uk, where I ended up buying stuff you made, ironically, from Red Savior, right? Is that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
I didn't know that was you all these years. I have the vinyls literally right here to my right.
Oh, the Simmons. Yeah, I totally forgot about those. So Simmons put those out, and I'm like, okay, cool. But I keep forgetting I've got those. I actually got stuff on vinyl now. Holy crap.
I might go dig for it. It's right here, like a couple of vinyls deep right there.
I mean, I've never seen it, never had it, never seen
Did
it.
it?
So.
Oh, I'll have to show you. One's called Conviction 1 and Conviction 2, and it
Right.
had this really cool, it was great with great scripture, and it was just so cool. And then, I was introduced to all the artists there. I was buying stuff from that site regularly. I think at our early days, I had a Tasty Fresh shirt with the logo. We think those are still some of the coolest slip mats. Those are so cool. You had
Yes, the Tasty Fresh slip mats. That was
we need some of those.
that was a coveted thing.
All that was Jamie.
Okay.
Jamie printed up all the merch. Jamie sold all that. And
That's
I've
a
got
great leader, is always passing the accolades to somebody else, but you were a part of that, so thank you so much. And I mean, dude, thank you. I mean, everybody just needs to know, like, don't maybe go over there. Please go over there. You know, Facebook/Tasty Fresh. Get involved. Look at the history. Anyone in Christian dance music needs to know about it. So this is Dave Richards, and he was a huge part of that. So it wasn't just the negative side about the conversations or brawls, but dude, it was so good. It was so good.
I enjoyed it. I missed those. Honestly, most of my friends came out of that group. Like my close friends today, almost all of them are from there.
Wow.
I know for a fact when I was getting into DJing, kind of late high school, early college years, when I found that site, I didn't always post, but I was probably daily, if not 3 times a week, checking it, getting on there, reading the conversations, you know, hearing, you know, even just reading, like when someone would post something and get feedback on the track, or you know, because you had the tech stuff, you had the, you know, the philosophical and the kind of the debate stuff. I mean, there were so many forums. It was just it was a literal playground for, again, Christians who didn't know other Christians were out there doing this thing. I know, like, I felt almost alone because I was the only guy in my sphere that liked the music and was DJing, but you know, we're going to clubs, we're getting friends that may or may not be believers that we're trying to get some mentorship from, and so you just felt like almost alone. And here was this place that we could go to and at least relate to other people that were like me.
Yeah, it was kind of magical.
Yeah.
You do know that we got quoted in Mix Mag in one episode or issue, right?
No.
I think I do remember that, but tell us about that.
Yeah,
I don't remember all the details, but one of our fights was so epic that somebody from Mix Mag was browsing, picked it up and republished it. I have no idea what it was anymore, but
I guess any PR is good PR, right?
I didn't complain. I mean, I thought it was hilarious. I think the one thing that I may have been too harsh on with Tasty Fresh more than anything else, I think, were the reviews that we did, the CD reviews. Because there was a time when Kevin and I forgot who else, I guess it was Bill Sykes, was working with us on that, and we were determined to kind of push everybody forward and say, you know, if something's bad, we're going to go ahead and give it a bad review, and if it's good, we're going to praise it. And we might have been a little too harsh on some of the bad CDs. You can talk to Dave Copeland about that and his Demolson stuff. But yeah, that we were probably a little too hard on some of those. But then again, I look back and I look at where we're at now, and production across the board is so much better than it was 20 years ago.
Sure.
And do I have regrets? I think I've got some regrets, but at the end, it looks like it's worked out.
Right.
Problem is we don't have Tasty Fresh anymore.
Well, you know, I think everything you can look back and you analyze the good and what could be done better, the opportunities.
Yeah.
But dude, I'm sure you helped refine and help some people as well. So, dude, well done. I will share this with you and to the audience, and I know I've already told you this on the phone at one point, but I don't think my friend will mind me putting him on blast, but his name is Gabe Cox. He is a filmmaker and actually a storm chaser who makes films about it.
Yeah, I remember Gabe.
Yeah, Gabe gave his life to Christ through Tasty Fresh. He was a young guy, I think in the Northeast, I want to say Maine. We got connected because he was interested in Transform on project level. And dude, like he told me, it was right around the time you guys were transitioning out of Tasty Fresh, and he was just telling me about his testimony, and he was telling me how it was instrumental in him coming to know Jesus. So I just want to say, bro, I'm sure there was many more, but if it was for Gabe Cox, look at that. And he's serving Christ today, bro. And he was on staff or connected into a local church in Austin and Jacksonville and different things like that. But dude, well done, bro. Well done. I have questions connected to that, but I want to give Tim a chance to.
Did you want to hit the?
Yeah. I mean, so out of Tasty Fresh, again, the live expression. I remember in 1997, I went to a festival here with a local youth pastor called Larry Pombianco, and it was called Vision Fest. And they brought out a guy named Jeremy Dawson with Cloud to Ground. And that was the first time I saw a Christian in dance music at a crazy festival ground. But the only other reference I had, besides the Worldwide Message Tribe and those guys doing schools in the UK, was what you guys were doing. And it was Cornerstone, and we're not 100% sure, but I think it was after hours. It was a tent, a stage, it was a DJ. Tell us what happened at Cornerstone Festival, where it was, what years you ran it, and like tell us all about it, including some of the artists you brought out.
Yeah, so Cornerstone actually goes back to like the mid 80s, I think. I forgot the actual year, but so it was a music festival run by Jesus People USA out of Chicago.
Okay.
And it originally started at inside Chicago, but it eventually grew to be too large, and it moved to another location. And then eventually they bought this farm out in Bushnell. So in the middle of nowhere, near about 30 minutes outside Macomb. And I think it's Western Illinois University's out there. And originally Scott Blackwell was running a stage, EDM stage there. And so when you talk, I'm sure you're going to have JR and Greg on at some point, right?
Yep, they're in the queue.
Yeah.
We're just scheduling.
Okay, good. So they were there, and it was a magical. Yeah. So magical time where they didn't have a building, so I think they were in a tent at the time, and just with all the mud and everything. And Cornerstone itself is kind of like the Christian version of Woodstock, and it's really interesting because you have the ultra conservatives camping next to the ultra liberals Christians. So it's just like very diverse in faith. I kid you not, there was a vegan camp next to a meat lovers camp. And I don't know, I still don't know to this day if that was a joke or not, but you never knew there. They could have been serious about that. There were other Christians that would drive from like Wisconsin to go there to protest at the entrance every single day of the festival. It was weird. There were freegans there, and so they just pick up, food out of the garbage and eat it. There were people who just come there and say, God told me to come here, and came totally unprepared, without any food, any money, any tents, and they're just like, we're showing up to do this. And me being the ultra conservative, I'm going, did God really tell you to do that? God really tell? Because I knew coming from Atlanta, it costs, staying 2 nights in a hotel, the gas, and everything else up there. It's about a $500 trip with the ticket.
Right.
And that's doing it cheap.
Yeah.
So for somebody to come up to me and say, yeah, I hitched a ride and came up here, that kind of like, I don't doubt you did that, but you're a little insane. So there was always this weird balance between, the ultra hippie side of it and reality.
And you guys had a dance stage.
So the festival, for whatever reason, decided to split nights, and so it would alternate between a mixed records night and in-soul records night. And it was like night and day. They stopped doing that because they realized that's not really their thing. And Chris brought me in to take over. And then this is in 2007, was my first year doing it. So I went in there with Kevin O'Neill, and there was Patrick Muldoon, who was Fitzpatrick, who was tied in with the old, what was it? I can't remember. The Atlanta Christian rave group that was here for a while. But James Tucker was in that, and Robbie, I can't remember, Ryan, what's it? No, that's bad. I shouldn't remember this. I'm having a brain fart. But anyway, Patrick tied in with, Kevin, and that kind of connected me together with him, and that connected me with the Harmony Central group out of Birmingham. And they're not Christians, but they do sound for events. And I basically said, hey, if I'm taking over, we're going to do this right. We need Harmony to do this. We're not going to have these rock guys come in and not adjust their system so it can't do the bass right. Yeah. And I said, we're going to have lights, and we're going to do it right. And I got Jeremy Kanger out of Wisconsin to come in and take over the lighting for it. And then the next thing was we are going to bring in some Christians who are active in the secular scene to give them one night, at least one night out of the year, where they're not in an environment that's, filled with drugs and they're willing to do it. And then we'll have, instead of doing like 5 artists a night, we're just going to do 2. We're going to do an opener, give them an hour and a half set, and give the headliner 2 hours. And that's going to be it. So for the next several years, we rolled in and converted this barn every single night into a nightclub. And every year it was different, and we had different challenges. And so, the first year we had, there was a stage there, and we didn't have enough room on the stage for the turntables and for the controllers that everybody was using at the time. And so we put the turntables down on the ground and had the audience right up in front, and yet our headliners going down there and DJing, and then everybody needed controllers was up on the stage. And it completely changed the environment because now everybody can interact directly with the DJ.
Wow.
The barn had open rafters, so we'd have a problem with people actually climbing the rafters and running across the entire time. It's hilarious because, somewhere there's a video of like a zombie walk going through, the place. They got the zombies. I mean, again, Cornerstone weird. That was all the goth people doing zombie walk. But there's a video of Kevin reaching up at some point, grabbing some kid by the leg and yanking him down out of the rafters. I mean, it was not exactly safe. What else happened? But the next year we came in and we just tore down the stage. We were the only people using the building. I went to the festival director. I said, "Do you need the stage?" He said, "Well, not really." "Well, it's in our way. Can we get rid of it?" He said, "I don't have a crew to take care of it." And I said, "Okay, fine." So we ripped it apart, and then draped screens in the back, and we had a 40-foot projection screen behind us. Nice. At that point. And and every year it was just evolving, and you'd see people like Strike. We'd have from Miami, he'd come in almost every year, and every year he was like shocked at the transformation he'd do. And then we take like 8 hours to set up every day, 8 to 10 hours at least, when we get there, to convert everything, and then be set up for the week, and that would not exist for the next year.
How many nights would it run? 5 or 4?
We'd run it 4 or 5 nights.
Incredible, man. And who would some of the other artists that you would have play like in the past?
We had Kenneth Thomas come in.
Yes.
Treasure Fingers, when he was still doing drum and bass as part of Evil Intent, was in. At that time, he was living in what I thought, when it was informed, was more of a Christian life. I don't know him that well right now. Shiloh was supposed to show up, and they didn't one time because, an appendicitis happened. And at the last minute, so that was fun. Jeremy Dawson showed up and forgot to bring his music. I was not in the mood, and he's like, "I'll just use anybody's controllers." I'm looking around at everybody's controllers, and I figured everybody was using custom mapping. I'm like, "Dude, you don't have time to learn this stuff." And so I'm like, "You got to apologize," and we're calling it. So I had him apologize for not bringing his music.
Oh man, wow, that's like an incredible story, man. And you had Prodigal Sons.
Huh?
Prodigal Sons.
Didn't actually get them.
Oh. No Prodigal Sons.
No Prodigal Sons. I couldn't get a lot of the classes. I don't know why. I didn't know Greg well back then, or JR. Okay. Andy Hunter we had come once, maybe twice.
Nice.
Else? I don't know. I mean, I'd have to go get the flyers and start looking at them.
That's so cool.
I don't remember when all the stuff happened with Insole and Mix exactly, but it's funny because that festival, it was actually like 30 miles from where my grandmother lived in Illinois.
Yeah.
And actually I played the Insole tent one night. I want to say it was like maybe like 98.
That was before. That was right about when the Insole stuff was going down.
Okay, so I know that night, like I played, and then Cloud the Ground played. So it was Jeremy and Chad, I believe. No, I'm sorry, it wasn't. It was just Jeremy, but he had the full live PA, 2 keyboards. He was singing. It was really, and it was a it was a packed tent. I mean, it was a huge tent, and it was packed, and it was pretty sweet. But that was actually my only experience at Cornerstone. But I just remember that it was just like 30 miles from where my grandparents lived, so I had free room and board.
It was this like this in the ether, this thing that we heard about that like there's this dance thing, there's this rave, this is done by Christians. It's out there. It's at a festival. What's a Christian music festival like? And they're doing DJ stuff.
Yeah, what's like, a Christian rave?
Exactly.
Yeah,
and it was just there. Sorry?
We still don't know what a Christian rave is.
It's fair point. But yeah, it was just this amazing thing out there. And man, we just want to thank you, dude. Seriously, not overstated, but genuinely from the heart, like just for what you carry, what you've carried all these years, what you pioneered, what you partnered with, all the different iterations. You faithfully took it over from, you give credit to other people starting the things, but you carried it and you brought it to where it was. And that, you know, I feel for the most part, it was through you that I was introduced to it, you know, like, and so I personally thank you to all of our listeners. We're talking to Dave Richards from MK837 Records, MK837.com. We're talking about Tasty Fresh, the former tastyfresh.com. That's actually on Facebook, facebook.com/tastyfresh. You can click the forums there. We're talking about Cornerstone Festival and the sort of dance music nights. What was it called when you did it? Was it the After Hours Barn?
Yeah, we call it After Hours.
Okay.
Dance club. So we referred to the facility it was in, the actual building, as the barn, because it was the only building, and actually the only structure that was permanent there.
Okay.
There were some other trailers and things like that, but that was the only permanent structure. And so we just called it the barn, and then we called the event After Hours.
Amazing. So yes, After Hours, Cornerstone Festival, After Hours, the barn, the forums, the music, the podcast that eventually happened. What was the name of the podcast? Tasty Fresh Podcast, right?
No, Tasty Fresh Presents.
Tasty Fresh Presents.
But there were like we had 3 or 4 other podcasts that were running. I mean, at one point we were running 4 podcasts, different shows a month.
Yes. And I remember the early days, like, and I was like, this is great audio, and it's got an interview, and it's got like these guys talking. And anyway, man, I want to give honor where honor's due, say thank you. We love that you've fathered so much of this, and just, you know, your testimony and how you were saved, and just giving so much hope to Christian housed kids who haven't necessarily made that commitment, but where you, through your testimony, can encourage them to basically like make that decision to be saved, and then, you know, just be public about it, you know, and be not ashamed. So, bro, it's so good. There's so much more we can talk about. I'm sure we will once we stop recording. But
we'll have you back, and we'll talk more history for sure.
We need to have the history of.
Yeah.
Seriously, I wonder if we could do some sort of course. We like just put together like the history of the Christian electronic dance music. I will say this: there's a friend, and you probably already know this. I don't want to misspeak, but his name's Ivan, DJ Byorsov, out of Russia. Published a book called The World of CEDM, The World of Christian Electronic Dance Music. And I want to say that there's a bunch of guys in there. I want to say that there's something about Tasty Fresh in the book. And he published it, and it's got a European perspective, like Ukraine and other stuff that we didn't necessarily know about. It's got the UK story too, with the Worldwide Message Tribe and those guys. But I want to say it's got something about Tasty Fresh. Forgive me if I'm misspeaking, but definitely stories went around the world, bro. Yeah. So it's pretty cool, bro. Extras cool. Anyway, dude, thanks so much for everything, Tim. Oh, we've got a couple fun questions.
That's right.
I'm sorry. We're gonna end with a couple quick hitters, fun questions.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
All right. So you're still in Atlanta. So if we came to visit you in Atlanta, and we said, "Hey, let's go eat," where would you take us?
Ooh. Wow. I'm like the one guy. Oh wait, let me think. Barbecue. There's several barbecue places around. The one I would probably take you to is the one you wouldn't expect, which is in a mall.
Okay.
That's cool.
Called Barbecue Works down at Stonecrest Mall. That's one of my favorite places to go grab some barbecue. Now, it's not necessarily your hole in the wall, you know, where you've seen them like smoking out back and it looks like a barbecue place. No, this isn't the food court. It's nothing fancy. But I've been enjoying their food for, I don't know, since the mid-90s. So you actually started out at Underground Atlanta, which is right in downtown, and then opened a new place out here, and then Yeah, let's close the other one. There's not that much traffic there around. The other place I'd probably take you is Rose's Pizza off Broad Street in downtown Atlanta, which is it's New York pizza, but it's like the soup kitchen kind of attitude from Seinfeld. They won't cut you off. It's kind of that. But the lasagna there, those divided to go containers, like the meat side of it is completely filled with lasagna, and then they fill the rest up with salad and the bread.
Wow.
So, and it's like dirt cheap.
Okay.
And it's absolutely amazing. The calzones are great there. I'm not a fan of the pizza just because it's more New York style. I'm not the New York style as much, but it's solid food.
Nice.
Dude, I love it. That's the stuff we just don't know about. So I love the food court, and I love that. That sounds so good, dude. I'm so hungry right now. I haven't eaten today. But that's so good. Okay, so now you're in Atlanta, but do you have any particular sports team that you would consider yourself a fan of?
I hate sport. I hate sport with a passion. Which hurts me because my son's in the mixed. Well, he's mixed martial arts, but he's been doing taekwondo and he's on doing track.
Okay.
So I kind of have to encourage him, but since I can't relate to sports at all, it's kind of like, good job.
Go team.
Although I will say this, he has 2 medals from the Junior Olympics, both in weapon sparring, gold medal, and I think the other was bronze, only because that kid cheated.
I love that. That's so funny.
No, they can't take seriously. I think he did. They were the one miscalled. Do what? Sorry.
Spoken like a true parent.
I got the videos.
I love it, bro. So good. That makes complete sense, dude. Okay. It's funny. A lot of the guys we've interviewed, some of them, if they're from the UK, they have their soccer team, their football club. But so many of the guys we've interviewed so far are just not into sports.
You're like, man.
It's totally cool. So you're in good company, bro.
Yeah.
Okay. Last question.
Final question. This is a big one. Tea or coffee?
I do both.
Okay.
Coffee in the morning, coffee in the afternoon. After supper, tea.
Okay.
Oh, come on, dude. Spoken from a wise man. That sounds like this pure wisdom right there.
It sounds like he wants to sleep at night.
Yeah.
I don't know, because the way I drink tea is I just put the bag in and I let it steep until I'm finished drinking it. So it should keep me up.
Totally, yeah. If it's like
Now,
English black tea.
When I was in college, I'd take 2 tea bags and put it in at the same time.
Wow, definitely. Like that's some serious caffeine there for sure, dude. Yeah, so dude, that's awesome. I'm the same as you. I love coffee. Gotta have my tea. I drink like the English style, a little bit of milk. Like that's so good. I love it. But definitely coffee lovers over here for sure.
Yeah.
Guys, so good. Dave Richards on the extended Moving the Needle on Movement Radio. We can't thank you enough. Artists and forerunners that are moving the needle. We're so grateful that we had you. I hope to have you again. Would love to do a history of Christians and electronic dance music at some point. That'd be so fun, bro. Yeah, it would. It'd be so good. Thanks for all you've done. Thanks for all we covered. And bro, just keep going. Keep up the good work, bro.
Well, dude, thanks for having me.
All right.
Peace.